This is Robert Merdlacci of the Mindshare Learning Report, Canada's Learning and Technology e-magazine. And welcome to another episode of Mindshare TV. Today, I'm excited to be joined by my esteemed co-chair for the upcoming Canadian EdTech Summit, Dr. Steve Joordens, a professor of psychology at the University of Toronto, Scarborough. This year's summit will take place from October 31st to November 2nd at the brand new Sam Ibrahim Active Learning Spaces building. We're thrilled to have Dr. Joordens on the show to talk about the event, the future of EdTech, and how we're shaping the Canadian educational landscape in an AI-inspired world. Welcome, Dr. Joordens.
Thank you. Always great to chat with you, Robert. Look forward to it.
Well, let me say a little bit about you because you do a lot. And Dr. Joordens is a professor of psychology at the University of Toronto, Scarborough, where he's gained a reputation as a leading educator and advocate for innovative approaches to teaching and learning. Hence, that's why we're partnering with him and the university. As the director of the Advanced Learning Technologies Lab, Dr. Joordens focuses on developing an integrated educational technology to enhance student engagement and success. He's known for his work on Peer Scholar, his EdTech company, a platform that leverages peer assessment to foster critical thinking and creativity. A passionate speaker and thought leader in EdTech, Dr. Joordens has presented at numerous national and international conferences. As co-chair of the 15th Canadian EdTech Leadership Summit, he brings a wealth of experience and insight into the intersection of technology and pedagogy. I know it's a mouthful. I needed to say it. And you are a remarkable professor. My only wish is that I was going back to university again this September. And you've got a very small class of some 1,900 students joining you in your introductory psychology class.
About there. Somewhere we flirt between 1750 and 2000, depending on the year. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what inspires you every day, Dr. Joordens, to do what you do?
Really the really cool thing about teaching is watching these students down the road. And I'm continually being contacted by students I taught 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago in some cases. And they'll tell me they remember the lectures and they were inspired by things and that I helped them sort of find their direction in life. And those sorts of things, that's what I like to do in the classroom, is really provoke them to think deeply about stuff, to interact, in ways like that. So when I hear those stories and I think, okay, I have a chance to do that with another, 1,800 this fall, it's my therapy to walk into that classroom and hang out with those students. That's my therapy.
Very cool. And could I perhaps say something else about you, that you're a very humble professor, and what is so compelling is, like a professor mentor of mine at York University, Dr. Greg Malzecki, who was on my board for many years, award-winning university professor, because you care. You actually demonstrate that you care about your students, and that is so impactful. And
Yeah.
that student-professor relationship is so critical.
Yeah. We've actually done research directly. We were looking at online instruction and what are the factors that make a student really embrace some online teaching experience. And the number one factor was something called instructor presence, which we
Right.
boil down to: the instructor is there and they care. And that's the most critical thing for any educator, I think. If you're there and if you care, the rest kind of comes naturally out of that caring. And so, yeah, I certainly do. And I certainly appreciate, I consider myself supremely blessed to have the job I do, and to be
Amazing.
able to interact with these students.
And we feel supremely blessed that you're partnering with us on this 15th year that we've been hosting this summit. We're back
Yeah.
in Toronto after traveling around and dealing with COVID online. Last year we were in Ottawa, the previous year Montreal, and we are in a brand new building. And I'm so excited about the Sam Ibrahim Student Learning Spaces building. Talk to me a little bit about your involvement. And I met the architect firm as well when they were in the planning process. They came and interviewed me as well on the
Yep.
future of learning. So yeah, it's sorry, the name escapes me right now, but we're going to have them speak at our conference as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was the really kind of interesting part is as
Zebra,
yeah.
I should say. Zebra architectural firm.
Exactly, Zebra Architecture, and when they came, I was part of the committee of this new building, but what made them interesting is they came right away and said, you know, "We really wanna design this space as one that optimizes different kinds of learning," and started presenting issues like, you know, color and texture and shape of the room and style, and how do these all impact the kind of learning experience that goes on there, and so it was an interesting chance literally to get very, dare I say, concrete about you know, some of this educational psychology research. Like, how can we actually take things that we know from a lab, but have the whole building inspired by that? And those that come to the conference, you're going to be in a very different space, and especially the main theater where we'll be doing most of the discussions. It's going to be a theater in the round where discussion, where whoever is presenting is in the middle and is continually walking around, and everybody's only about 12 people deep. So it's a unique concept on a large lecture hall, and you're going to see that all through the building. So it was a real chance to kind of work in a way that I knew would have an impact on so many students, and it was a lot of fun. And the architectural company are fantastic. It's great. They're going to be at the conference talking about things too. Yeah, there we go. Get a little bit of a taste of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna a sneak peek there. There's a
There you see that
description.
lecture hall, or a rendition of it. Yep. You know, the whole notion was to really think deeply about each space, and if we talk about just that lecture hall, for example, you'll notice that they're not very deep. The students are not very far back, and that's what that lets you do. It allows you to take a 500 seat lecture hall, but, you know, let's do a count here. I don't know, what is it, about 10 seats back or about 12 seats back, and what that means is you can look them in the eye, and that makes it less comfortable for them to be looking at their phones and looking at Facebook. And it's supposed to create a more engaging experience. And of course, it also forces the instructor to react in sort of non-traditional ways and think about different ways of doing things. So yeah, it's a fascinating space. I can't wait to get into it.
Well, and that's the exterior of the building. We can look at some other spaces, I believe. Well, that's pretty cool. The lab spaces,
So a lot of thought about active learning all through here.
right?
How can we literally create a space that will support a very active learning classroom? And you kind of see that in some of those sections. So a lot of cases, students can control the video, for example, if
Wow.
they are doing a presentation on their table, but then they can immediately present to the entire class. Yeah, a lot of thought about things. And, you know, even things like if it's an active learning classroom, what kind of colors kind of promote that sort of active cognition, what sort of textures do that, versus, for example, other spaces are much more reflective for students to kind of be sitting and reading or doing other things. In there, we've made much more calming sort of spaces.
Right.
So real, you know, really taking a lot of this research and just putting it into work here.
Yeah, very cool. And I'm looking forward to that panel about the design thinking of the
Yep.
learning environments because it is, as you say, very intentional. And the color scheme, as we have here at the Mindshare Workspace, was very intentional. And that's part of why they came and met with us. And we were featured in their digital book that they published,
Yep.
and which was so cool. Talk to me about, as co chair, the Canadian EdTech Summit, what excites you most about the theme of navigating the future of education and then the AI inspired world? How do you see AI reshaping education over the next few years? And how many years is it for you to be in that role?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is a really fascinating time. It's a challenging time, of course, because educators have been through COVID and et cetera, and they were already a little tired. And then we get something that we just cannot ignore, and that's what AI is. It's part of our world now, and if we're preparing students for the world, we have to be using AI in the classroom. We have to be teaching them how to work with AI. But that, of course, means a lot of us have to learn and reconsider how we do things like assessment, how can we use AI to be more engaging in the classroom. And so, you know, it really is forcing a lot of educators, and I use that word because that's the challenging part. It threatens our autonomy a little bit, right? It's kind of like, no, this is something you have to deal with, and that can make us at first kind of want to step back. But then when you move from the sort of fear of change to the opportunity that AI presents, that's when you start realizing that, wow, you know, some of the problems we've been facing for many years and have had trouble surmounting, AI may give us a different perspective, a different path, and we may be able to do some things now that we just couldn't do previously. And once you start seeing that opportunity of AI, that's when we all get excited, I think. And we're going to be sharing a lot of that at the conference.
Absolutely. And there is a sense of urgency given the pace of change. We produced the
Yep.
global and local report on the future of AI in K 12, and we're looking at beyond that as well. And we have a number of use cases that are launching as part of C21 Canada and our Dell partnership. Incidentally, I'm wearing my McLaren jacket. You've got your F1 car on the wall. It's in honor of this weekend's F1 race. And
Fantastic. It's
we're
back.
passionate about that because the innovation and the problem solving skills required, and there is
Yeah.
a lot of problem solving involved in this process. And we got 70 days to go, and there is a sense of urgency around this because the students aren't waiting. I
Yeah.
saw a report. We have our Can-Am report going out later this afternoon, of which this interview will be embedded.
Yep.
One professor says that over half his students are cheating using ChatGPT. Is it cheating or not? It's all in the context and how you use the tools,
Yeah. Yeah.
and right. And students need to understand. It's about digital citizenship, ethics, and it's responsible use of the tools. No, not
Yeah.
unlike when Google came on the scene.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, was photography cheating to the artists of the day? It probably was. The artists of the day used to get a lot of work doing realistic portraits of people in their homes, and then suddenly photographers came along, and oh, that way of doing art suddenly, didn't have a whole lot of mojo anymore. And so artists, this is why we got into, away from realistic art to abstract art and impressionism and all this stuff. And suddenly the art world changed. The education world is going to have to change. And so, yeah, we can look at this as cheating. And that's because we're trying to do the traditional approach using the new technology. And the new technology, really comes into conflict with that. But that's why we have to think of new ways. So, for example, maybe students are start with a draft provided by AI.
Mhm.
And their task is to now take that and make that better, and that becomes their goal. How can I work with AI to produce work better than I could have done without it? And at any rate, those are the sorts of things we as educators, if you think they're cheating, that probably means you can't do that assessment that way anymore. And now
Well,
you have to put on your 21st century skills hat and get in the trenches and figure out how can I do this in a way that's going to serve my students' success.
well,
And that's tricky, but
well
it's fun,
said.
right?
Well said. Speaking of assessments, you've been an advocate for active learning and
Yeah.
peer-based assessments. How do you see your role of ed tech tools like Peer Scholar evolving in a world increasingly influenced by AI?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our more innovative practices in education, and we try to roll some of those into Peer Scholar for sure, but they are based on this premise that the 21st century skills are so critical. They are more critical now. AI can really help us do a lot of the things we could do easily, but things like knowledge acquisition, knowledge is at our fingertips like never before, but we have to know how to work with it intelligently. And so the acceleration of AI has really made, I think, a lot of these educational innovations more necessary than they were. I think they were kind of a nice to have. We would like to take the next step, and I think suddenly it's like, no, no, we're there. We got to get there, and we got to figure out how. And so using educational tools, they can be really helpful because they can harness AI for a teacher, let's say, instead of the teacher having to think of how can I bring AI into the classroom? If there's a good tool that integrates AI in a way that makes a lot of sense for the teacher and works for the student, then these tools can help teachers, reach that goal of helping students to work with AI. And so to some extent, yeah, these techs and these innovations, maybe they have to do the cutting edge thinking. Maybe that's where the entrepreneurial ideas of how to harness AI are going to come from. But then it has to be packaged in a way that teachers feel comfortable using in the classroom. And I think that's our challenge now as third party vendors, is to really help the teachers meet the challenge of teaching AI.
Well said. And we've got an incredible lineup of presenters kicking off on the 31st on
Yeah.
Halloween. Maybe we'll make that a a Halloween themed party at the end of the Can-Am
Should it be
reception
should
for
it be an AI? Do we all have to dress up as robots or something like that?
something with an AI theme to it would be
Very
pretty
cool.
cool. We're going to do site visits. How important is it to actually see and touch and feel learning environments and edtech tools as part of the showcase that we have?
Yeah, I mean, I think what all of those things provide is a real concrete. We can talk abstractly about where we'd like to go, what we would like to do, but when you see an actual building, for example, that employs a lot of these concepts, or a technology again that shows in very concrete ways, how to bring AI in and use it effectively, and to keep academic integrity and things like that in mind. So how can you balance all those things? And sometimes it can seem really difficult, but if you see a concrete example, then you can go, oh, okay, that's doable. And I think it's really important that a lot of us realize the wonder that AI kind of produces, but that it can be captured and harnessed in a way that does make it very usable and understandable, and the kind of experience that will really help our students succeed in the future. And it's tricky, of course, because the AI isn't going to sit still. So the things that we create this year and next year, we're going to have to revisit the year after and the year after, because the AI is going to get better and different. And it's going to be a bit of a ride. We're all on a little bit of a bucking bronco as we go through this, but it's going to keep us on our toes for sure.
Absolutely. And it takes a big village, and a digital village at that, I like to call it. And we've
Yeah.
got, uh, from a global perspective, Dr. Andreas Schleicher from the OECD, who's going to give greetings and a global perspective on where we're
Yep.
at with AI. And then we've got Dr. Chris Kennedy, who I'm surrounded by smarter people. That's what I try to do. And engaging with you and others who are presenting. Dr. Chris Kennedy was one of the first to embrace, as a superintendent, the notion of AI in education. He blogged about it. They've been moving forward quickly
Hmm.
and embracing and doing work and upskilling,
Yep.
demystifying with the stakeholder community, be it parents, students, teachers, and leaders within the administration, to really get them comfortable before they roll this out, which they've been piloting.
Yeah, and that's just sort of just an example, I guess, of one of the AI innovations that I've seen are communication systems that really help us connect the parent, the student, and the teacher together in ways that are meaningful, and allow the parents to get information, from a sort of chat bot, whatever, but one that is knowledgeable about what's going on in the schools and the intent behind it. And if we can get that team working well, so every student has that team of their teacher, their parent, and if we can have the student, the teacher, and the parent all kind of on the same page, that's the kind of thing that AI has the opportunity to help us do better than we've done before. And we know just that. We talked about instructor presence. Instructor presence is important.
Hmm.
So's parent presence. And if the
Absolutely.
parent can feel involved and informed, that can make a big difference in the student's success. And so, yeah, absolutely. The stuff Chris is doing is fantastic. We also have Alana Winnick, who's a
Yes.
podcaster. She's continually highlighting some of the cool stuff that's happening in this generative AI time. And I think that's a critical role now, because we have to share use cases. We have to, again, back to that concrete, we have to get out of this abstract, ooh, there's this mystical AI thing, and get to, hey, here's the way the one teacher is doing it. And isn't that cool? And the more we can see those cool little use cases, the less intimidating the concept of AI becomes, and the more exciting it becomes.
Absolutely. And then progressing from there, we we will be having the afternoon sessions of breakouts and
Yep.
further conversations with some incredible thought leaders. The Cross Canada Checkup Panel will feature Ryan Donaghy, as the Deputy Minister from New Brunswick, who embraced AI first, to give them credit and a shout
Mhm.
out, to do the first province-wide think tank this past February. So they've got on it fairly early relatively to other provinces. There's been a lot of piloting, as is the case at the post-secondary level, and an international perspective from Keith Kruger and Peter Singh from the Toronto District School Board, the
Yep.
executive officer of IT. They don't call him CIO anymore.
Mm.
And Christina Rasso won our Schools of the Future Student Innovation Challenge, as well as Randy Ossie was our EdTech Startup Challenge winner last year. So to give a fulsome perspective, we're going to fill another spot with one of the superintendents that we are going to announce shortly
Mhm.
from the GTA. You referenced Atlanta. I always
Yep.
enjoy the Dragons Den Startup Challenge. Perhaps we should have you pitch, but your EdTech's quite established now, so I'm not sure if you qualify for that.
Yeah, there may be something I could pitch, but yeah. The peer scholars, I think, a little far out of the gate, but that's always fun, right? Watching
Yeah.
people showcasing their ideas and, quite honestly, showcasing 21st century skills. The goals we all have are to produce the students who can be our future entrepreneurs, and so to see people up there pitching their ideas and any technologies or whatever they may have around them, that's sort of the spirit of what this is all about. So it's kind of the conference in action when we see that.
Yeah, and we have some incredible expert panel presentations in the afternoon. I referenced the National uh, AI Use Case Project with C21 and Dell, and that's going to be happening with Katina leading
Mhm.
that conversation along with other leaders. My colleague Karen Yamada from C21, we're grateful to have you part of that community as well. And then we're going to give a US perspective. It's always important to go beyond the ecosystem to see what's happening abroad.
Yep.
And then, of course, STEM is a big focus as well on the future learning environments. And then we have bridging innovation design thinking with the architect insights and Claudio Muca, the architect, and your colleague Andrew Afrasimon and Dr. Karen McKindle are going to join you as well in that conversation.
Yeah, and that'll give. And this is one of the great things about this conference, right? We have people from so many different perspectives, from higher ed, from K to 12, and in that case, for example, it would be more of an administrative look at, hey, if you're in charge of creating the future of a university, if you're that strategic person, and that's what Andrea Rafusaman is, what do you think about when you want to create a new teaching building? And how might you optimize the design of that building? And that was really what Andrew did. Karen McCrindle, also from our teaching and learning, was a big part of that process, among others, on that committee. And of course, Claudio was the architect. And so, yeah, it's a mix of administrators and professors and architects and other people working together to try to create something that really works for students. And it's a great example of that multi-perspective way of doing things that we need to all embrace now.
Absolutely. And I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Steve Brown, our
Mm,
closing keynote, who
yeah.
always is inspirational in providing insights from his perspective, leading the longest standing, oldest publishing house in education in Canada, Nelson, over 100 years. He's been very instrumental in retooling that company and pivoting to be relevant in the 21st century, which is not an easy task, is it?
No, no. I mean, it really, it's tricky to be an established company like Nelson is, but still to have the nimble kind of entrepreneurial spirit that you need in the education world nowadays. It really is a time to be looking at innovation. So yeah, that's a hard balance to reach, but Steve seems to have been doing a great job at that.
I would be remiss if I didn't highlight our Canadian EdTech Awards,
Yeah.
which folks are able to apply to. They're our ninth year. Why EdTech Awards across Canada? Because they didn't exist. So we want to recognize leaders in education
Yep.
and industry who are moving the innovation needle forward. And so that's happening at the end of the day on November 1st. And then finally, I'm super excited to be announcing that we, for the first time, are introducing a STEAM AI Teacher Esports Symposium on the Saturday that will kick off at the University of Toronto Scarborough.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be a cool, an exciting way to kind of, I don't know, just see people taking everything we're talking about and putting it in play in that kind of context. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
So the question, why is Saturday?
Mm,
Perhaps, and that's because teacher release time isn't what it used to be.
right.
There's a teacher shortage. We're dealing with costs, so we wanted to meet the needs of the community in the GTA, and that hence that's why we've orchestrated this partnership with our friends and partners at Let's Talk Science,
Yeah.
Dr. Bonnie Smith and Rami Gaddis, who is the CEO of Logix Academy. So that is our lineup for the event. And
Hmm.
right now, before back to school, we have a special offer, 20% off discount for the community because, at the end of the day, we want to have the right people there who are passionate, who are catalysts, who are change agents, because it really does take a village, doesn't it?
Yeah, and absolutely it does, and it's nice when it becomes a village. I've been working a lot more with K-12 and thinking about that bridge between K to 12 and higher ed, and I don't think we do that bridge very well right now. I think the more we can communicate across that barrier and help our students to get across that barrier in a comfortable way, fantastic. And AI is kind of driving that a little bit because it's a common issue that we're all facing. We're trying to find interesting new ways of harnessing AI well. And I think the more we can work together across all of these various perspectives that we have, the smoother it's going to be for everybody. And this conference, and if I may just step back for a moment and say, Mindshare Learning in general, the organization that Robert heads up, has always been about connecting people. And I think we need that more than ever right now, which is why I'm really proud to be co-chair here with Robert on this
Thank
conference,
you.
and really looking forward to the people we get to meet, and that's where a lot of it
Yeah.
comes from here, right? You get the ideas, you get excitement, you get motivation, but you also learn and connect with new friends, and that opens up opportunities. And that's the biggest reason I think to come is to come meet these fantastic people.
It's a fascinating time, isn't it? That human connection we talk about
Yeah.
is so vital. Hence the book. I hope to release it here at the conference in October, November. The art of networking in the age of AI, and it's about discovering the human connection,
Yeah.
rediscovering the human connection to thrive.
Yeah.
Talk to me about post COVID, what you've seen, and some
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, I mean, really connecting to what you're saying, COVID kind of drove us apart all a little bit, right? Or pushed us
Mhm.
into our home, and it really reduced the number of social interactions we used to just have spontaneously. And many of us kind of didn't realize, and maybe still don't realize, how important that is to our health, our physical health and our mental health. Both of those rest on what we call our social health. So social health is becoming a very strong concept in psychology, and it's one of those things. It's not a conscious thing, and that's the thing. So like I can tell people, if you go to this conference and you connect with a few people and you feel like you have a new friend, few new friends, you're going to feel better, and your mind may not realize what the cause of that is, but what that cause is connection. So yes, we can talk about networking as opportunities for your career and for future things like that, but it's also just food for the soul. It really is. As you connect with other human beings, we feel a bit of an antidote to all of that stress caused by the pandemic and the divisiveness in society. It's one of the best things we can be prioritizing right now, is to spend some time with others, engaged in something that we all enjoy together.
So true, and it's about community, and it is a
Yep.
massive community, and the folks who come into the ed tech community tend to stay in it. And what
Yeah.
advice do you have for some of these companies that may not have this on their radar but learn about it? How should they be preparing? What trends are you seeing that they need to be mindful of? Because the landscape is changing dramatically when you infuse AI into the equation. Case in point, tutoring companies.
Yeah.
You know, thoughts?
Yeah, no. It really is a time when, if you're an AI or an ed tech company, I think you really need to understand the challenge that teachers are facing, and whether, I have the opportunity, for example, I've been working quite heavily with TCDSB as they've been kind of thinking about how they're going to
Right.
integrate AI into things. And that gives me, the time I spend with them and listening to them and hearing about their challenges, gives me a much more realistic perspective as a third party vendor now about how to give them tools that really do impact what they need to do. And so I think we all need, there's a concept that I heard from music, which is the idea of having big ears. The Clash were often
Right.
accused, I'll say, of having big ears. As a punk band, they listened to lots of other things and brought it into their music. I think
Right.
we all need big ears now. We all need to
Right.
understand each other's worlds and figure out how we can work together to do things that matter.
Most well said. Finally, what are you most looking forward to personally at this year's summit? Are there particular speakers, sessions, or innovation that stand out to you, Dr. Jordans?
Yeah, I mean, largely, I'm looking forward to creating or deepening a lot of relationships with these people that I know maybe slightly already. I'm very interested in Alana's talk to see where she's going because I do see such a critical role now for influencer type people. It's that they are really important in how we get things done nowadays. So I'll certainly be going to her session and listening carefully to get an idea of how we can use things like podcasts to mobilize great ideas and to connect
Mm.
people. And I don't have to tell you about that. You do that every week at least. So
And sometimes more.
yeah,
So, well, you know what? I enjoy making those critical connections and being the bridge between ed tech and education to
yeah,
helping kids thrive. At the end of the day, that's what we do. You're passionate about imparting your knowledge and challenging students to explore psychology to help them grow and learn better. And it's never been a more exciting time to be in education. Grateful for
yeah.
your time today, Dr. Jordans.
Thank you, Robert. Always appreciate, always love having a good chat with you. So fantastic.
Fantastic insight and inspiration today. That was Dr. Steve Jordans, a professor of psychology at the University of Toronto Scarborough and co-chair of the 15th Canadian EdTech Summit, along with myself. Be sure to check out www.mindsharelearning to get more on the summit and our latest newsletter. And until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep.